Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, it's 3 o'clock. That means it's Tech Tuesday today. Today I'm going to be talking about some changes that are going to be taking place with the EBB, which is providing broadband subsidies to certain households, and how that's going to be changing with the new infrastructure bill. I'll be right back. And again, thanks for joining me. I'm Rick Uzzi here at Zquorum. So I've been doing Tech Tuesday for a long time, but recently started doing daily broadcasts on the new infrastructure bill, the Biden infrastructure bill that passed recently. And today I was going to cover kind of an aspect of that. It's this affordable connectivity program that's part of the bill. So one of the things that they're trying to do in the bill, in addition to providing funds to service providers to build out infrastructure and make broadband available, they also want to make sure that that broadband is affordable, because even if somebody has access to really great fast broadband, if they can't afford it, they're not going to get it. So they're trying to increase adoption and make sure, part of the bill has the word equity in it, so trying to make sure that everybody has at least an equal chance at getting access to broadband, even if maybe they have low income, that kind of thing. So as part of that, we've got this affordable connectivity program, which is taking the place of the can't remember the name, I'll get to it here in a second, but I'm going to go through basically the changes in this, because this would be important if you're a service provider as well as a consumer. So let me just bring this up and I'll get to that name here in a minute. So the reason I was going to go over this is the FCC has now issued a public notice on this, and also is looking for comment on kind of the transition from the ACP from the EBB to the ACP, the EBB being the old program. So you can see here, this is the notice, and I'm going to go through this. I'm not going to read, you're going to be happy to hear, I'm not going to read all 65 pages and not every sentence on this thing. I'm just going to highlight some things that I thought were interesting so that you don't have to read it right now if you don't want to, but I am going to link to it. If you participate in the current EBB program, or you're thinking about participating in the ACP, either way, it's probably something you want to be aware of. So just going to go through this, some interesting things here. So first, the introduction. The text of the Infrastructure Act establishing the Affordable Connectivity Program relies in large part on the EBB program directives and the Consolidated Appropriations Act by overlaying new Affordable Connectivity Program requirements on top of EBB program requirements, as well as by providing additional requirements. So the Consolidated Appropriations Act, that was something that was passed and related to COVID, and that's where one of the things in here was EBB, where it was providing these broadband benefits to people that had issues related to their income, especially if they had been laid off of their job and suddenly their income went way down, they didn't have money, and how important it was to have connectivity to try to maintain or find another job, that kind of thing. So this was part of that COVID relief bill, and the ACP is going to be basically taking that over as part of the infrastructure bill that was just passed. The Bureau must initiate this rulemaking within 5 days of enactment of the Infrastructure Act. Must set a 20-day public comment period followed by a 20-day period for replies, and the Commission must resolve the rulemaking within 60 days of enactment. So that's basically where we are today. Is the FCC is now requesting, they're going through this comment period, this 20-day comment period. They're going to accept comments, and then they're going to have a 20-day period to establish replies to those comments. So if you are part of the EBB right now and there's things you don't like about it, things you think could change, now is the time, if you want to submit comments, that you can do that, and the FCC will address those in their replies. The Infrastructure Act also directs the Commission to effectuate for the Affordable Connectivity Program specified changes, such as to EBB program eligibility and the program benefit amount by the effective date, which the statute defines as the date the Commission notifies Congress that all EBB program funds have been fully expended, or December 31st, 2021, whichever is earlier. And it says here, we do not project the EBB funds to be fully expended by December 31st. And therefore, for the purposes of this rulemaking, we consider December 31st, 2021 to be the effective date of the Affordable Connectivity Program and the end date on which the EBB program ceases. So basically, one ends and the other one begins, even though they're not going to be completely out of funds that were in the EBB program. So I'm assuming that those funds will then be transferred into the ACP. The Infrastructure Act also provides for a 60-day transition period for households that qualified for the EBB program before the effective date that would otherwise see a reduction in their benefit. And that reduction in their benefit is because the amount actually does go down. It goes from $50 to $30. Accordingly, the 60-day transition period will start on December 31st. Households currently enrolled in the EBB will continue to receive the same benefit level they are receiving, I'm assuming for that 60 days. Moreover, the ACP will also begin to accept enrollments on the effective date, so they'll start accepting enrollments for the ACP at that time. A little bit of background in here. Again, the EBB was established as part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, which was enacted on December 27, 2020. The program was intended to provide relief during the COVID-19 pandemic and uses funding from the $3.2 billion emergency, there it is, I couldn't remember what it was, Emergency Broadband Connectivity Fund to fund to support participating providers, provision of certain broadband services and connected devices to qualifying households. The EBB program launched on May 12, 2021. As of today, over 7 million households have enrolled in the program, so there are 7 million households that are under the EBB right now. On November 15, 2021, the Infrastructure Act became law, modifying and extending the EBB program and renaming it the Affordable Connectivity Program. So again, modified and extended it. So it's basically kind of the same program, but making changes. And there's a lot more money. So originally EBB had $3.2 billion, I think it is, and there's, I believe, $14 billion in the ACP. So the EBB was seen as temporary. The ACP is also seen as temporary, but with so much more money and a reduced amount that's going to be provided to folks, and maybe reducing some of the people that can get money, increasing the kind of the bar to get it. This may last quite a bit longer. So they're looking at this as temporary, but maybe someday down the road there'll be another bill that will extend that. Would that surprise anybody? It would not surprise me. That makes significant modifications to the eligibility criteria to be used for the Affordable Connectivity Program, sets out additional consumer protection requirements, reduces the standard benefit from $50 to $30 per month, imposes a new standard for determining the households that are eligible to receive the enhanced benefit of up to $75 per month, requires providers to allow enrolled households to apply for the Affordable Connectivity Benefit to any of the provider's internet service offerings, and sets forth additional requirements for providers regarding the promotion of the program. So before, you didn't have to apply this, you didn't have to accept somebody or give them this subsidy on any of your tiers or plans. Maybe you could pick one or two, or you just have a plan that you had for the people that were on EBB. Now it's saying anything that you're offering anybody out there, if you've got a tier or a plan, you will also have to offer this to your ACP customers, so to speak, and then still provide the subsidy to them. Now, I mean, you're going to be charging more for that service, so that means that the person who's getting the benefits will have to be paying more probably for the service. So, but it is saying that you've got to extend that to everybody for every plan. Participating providers, this does not alter the definition of a participating provider or the framework through which providers may seek to participate in the ACP. And then because this is a request for comment, basically, you see lots of questions in here. So again, if there's things you don't like about EBB or you want to comment on this, you can do that. And the FCC gives lots of questions in here, kind of priming the pump and saying, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? You know, here's what we're thinking, or we could do this. So as you read through this, they'll give you some ideas on what you might ask or comment on. We propose that all existing EBB program providers would not need to file or resubmit a completely new application to participate in the ACP prior to submitting their ACP election notice to USAC. Only a provider that did not participate in the EBB program and is not an existing ETC, that's a eligible telecommunications carrier, or affiliated with an ETC, would need to file an entirely new FCC approval application. As noted above, the Consolidated Appropriations Act also required that the Commission, the FCC, automatically approve as a participating provider any broadband provider that has an established program as of April 1, 2020 that's widely available and offers internet service for offerings to eligible households and maintains verification processes that are sufficient to avoid fraud, waste, and abuse. So when the EBB came out, they allowed service providers that already had their own program for low-income customers in place, as long as it was something that met a lot of the same kinds of things that were in the EBB. there was this automatic approval, and I think they're still looking at doing that. In fact, it mentions that further down here. We propose to retain the process developed for review and approval of automatic applications for such non-ETC providers, and we seek comment on that proposal. The Infrastructure Act makes several changes to the way households can qualify for the ACP. Under the ACP, eligibility for a provider's COVID-19 program no longer qualifies a household to receive ACP benefits. So if the provider had something in place that was specifically for COVID-19, this does not qualify now. Additionally, the Infrastructure Act removes eligibility for households that qualified based on having experienced a substantial loss of income since February 29, 2020. So they're assuming people can get, this is good, because people can get back in the workforce now. There are so many jobs out there, and lots of people are not taking them. So maybe this is a way to say, you should be out there and should be able to get a job now. Given these changes, we seek comment on how the Commission should revise the process for determining whether a provider's established program qualifies it for automatic approval to become a participating provider in the ACP. We propose consistent with the Infrastructure Act's modifications to the statute that to qualify for automatic approval, providers must demonstrate that they are offering broadband subscribers discounted rates based on criteria such as low income, participation in federal, state, or local assistance programs, or other means tested eligibility criteria, and must also demonstrate the pre-existing verification process used for this existing program. So again, they need to have these things in place if they're doing it their own way. We propose to require only providers that did not participate in the EBB program to seek Commission approval prior to submitting to USAC the ACP election notices. So if you're already doing EBB, then you don't need to go back to the FCC for approval before you submit your form to USAC. If you're starting out brand new, you weren't doing EBB, but you want to do ACP, then they're proposing that you would, I think, have to seek approval from the FCC before you fill out your ACP election notice. We seek comment on any additional changes that should be made to the provider approval process given the anticipated longer time frame of the ACP. So again, this $14 billion is going to go a lot longer than the $3.2 billion was going to go with the EBB, even though there's still funds left in that. Should the Commission adopt a formal process, again, here's some of the questions they throw out. Should the Commission adopt a formal process, providers must follow to relinquish ACP eligibility. Must the Commission act on such notice before a provider can withdraw from the Affordable Connectivity Program? So again, they're just asking some questions. Election notice. In the EBB program, the Commission required all participating providers to file an election notice with USAC to participate. Should the Commission require all providers to submit a new election notice for the ACP? And they say here, by doing so, the Commission would not only give providers an opportunity to refresh the information they initially provided for the EBB, but it would also ensure that providers are committed to participating in this new program and understand the program requirements. So they're saying there is, should we make, if you've been in the EBB, should we still make you completely file out a new election notice? That way you'll be committed to it and you'll know what's changed and what you're committing to. But then they say, alternatively, we seek comment on whether the Commission should require only providers that have not certified any claims for the EBB program to submit an election notice for the ACP. Then at another caveat here, it says if the Commission does not require all EBB program providers to submit new election notices, should the Commission require those providers to update their election notices to reflect new services and connected devices to be offered in the ACP? So even if you don't have to do that, if you've made some changes or you're going to be doing something differently with the ACP, then should they require that you update that election notice? We also see comment on the EBB program election notice form and process administered by the USAC and what modifications would be appropriate for the Affordable Connectivity Program. So again, if there's something you don't like about the form and you think you're going to have to submit it again, let them know. The Infrastructure Act removes the requirement that the service must have been offered in the same manner and on the same terms as described in any such provider's offerings for broadband internet access service to such household as on December 1st, 2020. Moreover, the Act also imposes a new requirement that providers shall allow an eligible household to apply the Affordable Connectivity Benefit to any internet service offering of the participating provider at the same rates and terms available to households that are not eligible households. So for example, if you've got a, let's say a 1 gig offering and you charge, I don't know, $75 a month for that, $50 a month, whatever, let's say it's $75, then you have to offer that as part of this program. Now, the person that you're offering it to would then be able to get up to $30, not $50 anymore under EBB, but up to $30 subsidy for that. And I believe that's paid to you. So then that helps defray those costs. But again, the household is having to pay a greater amount. So maybe it makes sense, and that's not a big deal. So the Commission required a demonstration that the service offering was generally available for a specific period of time prior to the submission of the election notice or the launch of the Affordable Connectivity Program. If so, what should that period of time be? So they want to know, again, if you were doing this already prior, then should that, what should be wrapped around that? What do they need to know? How should promotional and contract rates be evaluated for purposes of determining whether the supported service is offered on the same terms as those offered to non-eligible households? So they're seeking comment on how, what kind of structure they're going to put around this. Should providers be required to submit documentation on the retail rate of the device? This would be a device that they're providing, like a laptop or a tablet. There's a provision for that in here that we'll go through. Retail rate of the device, not limited to the make, model, and specifications of the device, and the cost of the device to the provider. We propose that, as with the EBB, a broadband provider will be required to have already registered with the Commission and USAC and to have received both an FCC registration number, the FRN, and a service provider ID, if applicable, before filing. I think I mentioned that was in there earlier. Let's see, I'm going to buzz through a lot of this. I'm sure you're thankful as we go through this. Some things here. Household eligibility. The Affordable Connectivity Program will provide eligible households a discount on broadband internet access service and a connected device, consistent with the EBB. That limits the ACP benefit to 1 per household for both the monthly benefit and the one-time connected device reimbursement. So household being an individual household, and then they can get this 1 benefit for the connectivity and 1 device. So if they have 7 people living in the house, you still can only get 1 monthly benefit as far as the reduction in the broadband internet access, and then 1 device can be applied to that. We next seek comment on implementing the eligibility criteria for the ACP. A household may qualify for the ACP if at least 1 member of the household, and then they go through different things here, meets the qualifications for the Lifeline program. With a modification, this is modified, that the qualifying household income threshold is at or below 200% of the federal poverty guidelines for a household of that size, has been approved to receive school lunch benefits, has received a federal Pell Grant, meets the eligibility criteria for a participating provider's existing low-income program, subject to approval by the Commission. So again, if the provider had their own low-income program, if the FCC approves that, then it could be that. The Infrastructure Act raised the maximum income for a qualifying base household income for purposes of ACP from 135% to 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. That was just mentioned there. And eliminated as a qualifying criteria substantial loss of income since February 29th as related to COVID, as we mentioned. So we seek comment on the qualifying benefit programs for the Affordable Connectivity Program. In the EBB program order, the Commission determined that households with students enrolled in schools or school districts participating in the Community Eligibility Provision, the CEP, are eligible for an EBB program regardless of whether anyone in the household applied for school lunch or breakfast assistance individually. So as long as their district participates in that and they're eligible for that, it doesn't matter whether anybody in the household applied for that school lunch or breakfast assistance. That was as far as the EBB. Should the Commission revisit in the ACP its decision to allow EBB program eligibility based only on attendance at a CEP school if the household would not otherwise qualify for the school lunch and breakfast program? Given that the ACP is not an emergency temporary program like the EBB, and will have longer duration than the EBB, is there still a compelling reason to allow CEP student eligibility? In a long-term program, how does the Commission assess the risk of allowing households that are not otherwise eligible for the school lunch and breakfast program to receive the ACP benefit? And I just noticed today, I'm going to show it here. Let me go ahead and get out of that. Wait a minute, hit the wrong thing. So hold on 1 second. If I can find this. Well, trying to find this other story. There it is. I think. Nope. Well, I can't find it. There is a story today, actually, that the FCC has said, and I'd bring it up, but the FCC has said that there has been some fraud specifically related to this, where some service providers have been, like the salespeople of service providers have been saying, hey, you know, if you're in this particular CEP thing in this district, then you can do this or that. So there was something related to fraud that they said they would be cracking down on. So that's probably why some of this is in here. Wish I could find that story, but I can't. It's somewhere up on my computer. Can't locate it. Let's see here. The Infrastructure Act permits participating providers to use the same three methods of verifying household eligibility for the ACP that are currently used for EBB. Use of the National Verifier and the Nled. Reliance on the participating provider's alternative verification process subject to certain conditions, and reliance on a school to verify eligibility under the free and reduced price school lunch or school breakfast program. So the first one, the National Verifier and the Nled, they might be similar, but the National Verifier is something that they have in place already that providers can use to do this, and a lot of them, I think we found here have, what in the world was that? There we go. That was just a note. We found that several have used that National Verifier in place of their own, even if they had their own. The Commission's EBB program rules prohibit participating providers from enrolling or claiming support for any prospective subscriber if USAC cannot verify the subscriber's status as alive. I just thought this was funny. So if they can't verify that they're alive, they can't use it. Unless the subscriber produces documentation of the National Verifier to demonstrate his or her identity and status as alive. Okay, so we propose to apply the same requirements to the ACP, and we seek comment on that proposal. I always think it's good to verify that somebody's alive before you give them tax dollars, so I would certainly comment that that was appropriate. Scroll down here. So as with the Lifeline and EBB programs, we also propose to apply a usage requirement to the ACP. We propose applying the same usage definition for the Lifeline and EBB programs to the ACP. And just so you're aware, I thought that was interesting what that is. So, and further here, and similarly to propose prohibit participating providers from claiming ACP reimbursement for the households that are not actually using a service for which a fee is not assessed or collected. Is the existing definition of usage adequate, and does it include sufficient methods by which subscribers receiving fixed broadband service could demonstrate usage? Should the test be modified to ensure subscribers actually using a supported service rather than simply keeping a device powered? So they want to make sure if they're giving this money to a house, again, they want people to be using broadband. They want broadband adoption, but they don't want people to say, yeah, I'll take broadband if you're going to give me some free money and you get a benefit out of it. So they want to make sure people are using this. We seek comment on whether the proposed definition of usage could result in service providers receiving payment where the subscriber is not actually using their ACP service. In the 2019 Lifeline Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, the Commission asked whether it may be possible for a provider to install an application or an app on an end user's device that would use data without the end user's knowledge. This and any other data usage that is not generated by the consumer would make it difficult to differentiate legitimate subscriber usage from data usage that happens without the knowledge or direction of the subscriber. So they're kind of saying, could some service providers be doing some nefarious stuff, including loading something on it that's like a keep alive or showing that there's some usage? I don't know that people are doing that, but it's interesting that they're asking that question. Consistent with the Lifeline program, for purposes of the ACP for households that subscribe to an ACP service that is subject to a usage requirement, we propose a 30-day non-usage period and a 15-day period for households to cure their non-usage. So what they're saying there is if a household's not using the broadband for 30 days, then they have a 15-day period to start using it. So it's like they're going to force them to use it, or they're going to lose the benefit. Recertification. We next seek comment on implementing a subscriber recertification requirement for the ACP to ensure enrolled subscribers continue to meet the ACP eligibility criteria from year to year. Annual recertifications are an important program safeguard for the Lifeline program to ensure the continued eligibility of enrolled subscribers. They just want to make sure, people's situations change, and they want to make sure that people are still eligible from year to year and they're not receiving benefits for something that they no longer need. So those benefits can go to somebody that actually needs them. Because again, the longer this goes, the better. And if somebody's receiving benefits that they shouldn't, then that's being taken away from somebody else. The Infrastructure Act also adds a new requirement that a participating provider shall allow an eligible household to apply the Affordable Connectivity Benefit to any internet service, we've talked about that provider is offering at the same terms that are available to others. And they seek comment on whether any internet offering should include legacy or grandfathered plans, or whether it only includes current offerings of a provider to new customers. So, in other words, can the provider go ahead and say, okay, well, if I'm going to do this and I make all these changes to my plans, or do they have to be to older plans as well that other people are still getting? In the EBB program order, the Commission declined to apply minimum service standards to the internet service offerings eligible for EBB discounts. Should the Commission reconsider this approach for the Affordable Connectivity Program? In other words, does there need to be a minimum speed, minimum service standard that you would have for the service? Does the Commission have the authority under the Infrastructure Act to institute minimum service standards for the Affordable Connectivity Program? They want to know, do you think we have the authority to do this? Would setting a minimum service requirement help to ensure that households are receiving a competitive broadband service that's covered by the support amount? So in other words, if the service provider is only offering, half a gig, and their prices are, $75, $100, whatever, does that really help these households that are only getting $30? They want to make sure that people maybe could get a service that is covered completely by the $30. So is there a service of, maybe, let's say they go with the minimum broadband definition today of 25 by 3, and they charge $30 for that. Then that person can get that $30 subsidy and, in a sense, get free broadband service. Now it's 25 by 3. But they need to make available all of their other plans, so if that person wants something faster, then they can buy that. Maybe it's a $50 plan, and they wind up paying $20 for that with the $30 subsidy, if that makes sense. If the Commission were to adopt minimum service standards, what should the minimum standards be? So they're asking the question there. Again, trying to get comments from service providers on what they're thinking about this. Should the Commission be concerned that providers will have an incentive to raise the price of a $15 plan to a $30 plan solely to maximize the reimbursement amount? So in other words, if your 25 by 3 plan is normally $15, and then you realize, wow, I can get $30 for this, I'm going to raise it to $30. They're wondering, should they be concerned about that? Well, I don't know how many $15 plans there are out there, so I don't know if that's a real concern. I think most broadband service plans are going to be $30 or more. Alternatively, will providers respond to the requirement that the ACP program and non-ACP subscribers have access to the same service offerings by restricting offerings of certain plans for all of their customers? In other words, okay, now that I've got to make this available to all these people that can have these subsidies, should I restrict what I'm offering? I don't know why they would do that. They should. I don't see any reason that they would do that. They can have all the plans that they normally have at the prices they have, and in any event, the most they're going to be subsidized is $30, and it's just that they're going to be actually charging the customer a bit more if they get the higher service plan. So I don't see why they would do that. We suspect that the requirement to make the benefit available to all broadband services will have a significant impact on providers, and we seek comment on whether providers would be prepared to participate in the ACP by the Infrastructure Act's contemplated effective date of December 31st, 2021. Again, I'm not sure why making that available to everybody, unless there's some billing kind of invoicing thing that they need to get into place. I don't think they'll have an issue with this, as long as, again, there's a certain cap to the amount that they give and it can apply to any plan. I don't see why that's an issue. Could it deter providers from electing to participate in the program or cause them to delay their election? So they want to know, is this going to delay people, or some people are going to decide not to participate? Maybe they're doing the EBB and they're going to get out because now they got to give it to they got to apply it to every tier that they have. I don't think so, but maybe they see some possible issue there. The Affordable Connectivity Benefit means a monthly discount for an eligible household applied to the actual amount charged to such household in an amount equal to such amount charged, but not more than $30. Or if an internet service offering is provided to an eligible household on tribal land, not more than 75. So if there's a household on a tribal land, instead of 30, it's 75. The Act removed a reference to associated equipment that was included in the definition of the Emergency Broadband Benefit previously. The prior inclusion of the associated equipment allowed the Commission to include equipment necessary for the transmission functions of internet service offerings supported through the EBB program, which the Commission found includes equipment such as modems, routers, hotspot devices, and antennas. So that was, you could include things like a modem before, but you can't now. In light of this modification of the definition, we seek comment on whether monthly rental costs for equipment such as modems, routers, hotspot devices, antennas, and any other equipment that is necessary should be eligible for the ACP. So it's not that it says you can apply it, it's just not covered, it's not mentioned in the ACP. So they're seeking comment as to whether things like modems and routers should be, maybe these monthly, $10 a month rental costs or whatever should be included in that. They're seeking comment. Connected devices. The Infrastructure Act retains the definition of a connected device and the reimbursement rate for such devices as used in the EBB. Participating providers, in addition to providing an ACP-supported broadband service to the household, may be reimbursed up to $100 for a connected device delivered to the household, provided that the charge of such eligible household is more than $10 but less than $50 for such connected device. So in other words, they can charge the household somewhere between $10 and $50 for a tablet, and they can be reimbursed for up to $100. Connected device is defined in the statute as a laptop, desktop computer, or a tablet. It does not include devices that can independently make cellular calls, such as large phones or phablets. So it doesn't include, if you've got a really big phone and you can use your internet on that, it's not included as far as a device. Provider may not receive reimbursement for more than one connected device per household, as mentioned before. We also seek comment on interpreting the one-time connected device reimbursement restriction to prevent providers from claiming a device reimbursement in the ACP for a household that received a reimbursable connected device in the EBB program. So if the provider was in the EBB and they provided a device to someone, does this mean they can provide another device? And they're seeking comment on that. Should the Commission prohibit households that received a connected device through the EBB from receiving a second device for the ACP? Almost through here. Enhanced affordable connectivity benefits. Tribal lands benefit, again, there's a $75 per month subsidy for that. We propose that the Commission use the same tribal lands definition from the Lifeline and the EBB program as for the ACP, as well as use the same maps for tribal lands. High cost areas. So this is interesting. So the Infrastructure Act also provides for a separate enhanced benefit for households that are served by providers in high cost areas. The Infrastructure Act requires the Commission to establish a mechanism by which an ACP participating provider in a high-cost area, as defined in a separate section of the Infrastructure Act, and that's defined in the Act as what you would expect, really, if it's an area that's hard to reach, like very rural, and there's not many customers in that area. That's a high-cost area. You've got, it's going to cost you more to lay fiber. Maybe topographically, you're trying to get up to the top of a mountain. It's a low-income area. These are all areas that would be eligible for high cost. So they may receive it up to $75 for broadband service upon showing that the applicability of the lower limit under subparagraph A, the $30 rate, to the provision of the affordable connectivity benefit by the provider would cause particularized economic hardship to the provider, such that the provider may not be able to maintain the operation of part or all of its broadband network. So they're saying there basically that if you're providing service to a high-cost area and you've got people there that want to take advantage of this ACP, then you can get up to $75, assuming that you can show why this would be a hardship. In other words, this is a high-cost area, and at $30, it's just going to be hard to you're going to be underwater probably, and you'll be losing out on that customer. So they want to make sure that the providers have a little bit of leeway there. High-cost area is defined elsewhere in the Infrastructure Act as the unserved area in which the cost of building out broadband service is higher as compared with the average cost of building out broadband service in unserved areas in the United States. And again, that's related to those things that I mentioned as to topographically, low income, those kinds of things. The Act further provides that factors to be incorporated into this determination are the remote, it's right here, look at that. The remote location of the area, the lack of population density of the area, unique topography of the area, a high rate of poverty in the area, any other factor identified by the Assistant Secretary, that would be the NTIA, and consultant with the FCC. And then reimbursement. I'm just going to scroll down here to where maybe did I put anything here? That was just a section on reimbursement, so I didn't highlight anything there. Consumer protection provisions. The Infrastructure Act includes several additional provisions related to consumer protection. It leaves unchanged the requirements that participating providers must not deny an eligible household the ability to participate in the Affordable Care Program based on any past or present arrearages with that provider. So if they, in the past, have not been able to pay you, you can't deny them now. And they will not be required to pay an early termination fee if they are being claimed, if the eligible households being claimed elects to enter into a contract to receive such an emergency service offering. and later terminates the contract. So you can't charge them a late termination fee if they elect to participate in this and then later decide not to. Credit check prohibition. It prohibits a participating provider from requiring an eligible household to submit a credit check as a condition for applying to the ACP. Non-payment permits a participating provider to terminate a subscriber's access to broadband internet access service supported by the Affordable Connectivity Program after 90 days of non-payment. However, it does not disturb the requirement that the providers cannot decline to enroll a household based on any past or present arrearages with the provider. I guess that also means that you can terminate them, and then maybe they can come back to you and say, hey, I'd like it again, and you have to take them back? That's a good question to ask. And how long do you have to wait before you can take them? That may be everything I have in here. I'm just going to scroll a bit further, see if I see any more highlights. I think that was the most. Nope, I did. Come down here. Promoting awareness. Oh yeah, so they want to make sure that anybody that's participating in this promotes it so that people in the area are aware that they can get this benefit. The Infrastructure Act also requires participating providers to notify all consumers who either subscribe to or renew a subscription to an internet service offering about the Affordable Connectivity Program and how to enroll. So anybody that is subscribing or renews, they want to make sure that the existing customers are aware that this benefit is available. See if we got anything else here. Public awareness. The Infrastructure Act requires participating providers, collaboration with state agencies, public interest groups, and nonprofit organizations to carry out public awareness campaigns in their areas of service that highlight the value and benefits of broadband internet access service and the existence of the ACP. So this is even separate from the ACP. So if a service provider is going to take money from the state, so the federal government is going to allocate funds to the state's going to allocate funds to sub-grantees, like service providers. If they take that money, regardless of whether they're participating in the ACP, they have to carry out this public awareness campaign to kind of promote how great broadband is, right? Because again, they're looking to get people to adopt this. We propose that providers be required to include it in promotional materials how consumers can enroll in the program. So whenever providers are, I don't know if they mean every single promotional material. If you get like a postcard in the mail, does it have to say, hey, you can apply for this, whatever. The Lifeline program requires providers to publicize the availability of Lifeline service in a manner reasonably designed to reach those likely to qualify for the service. We propose that the Commission adopt a similar advertising requirement for the ACP. So I don't know what reach those likely to qualify for the service. That would probably be low-income areas, I would think. We also seek comment on the performance measures the Commission should use in determining success of the ACP. How should success be defined? How should the Commission consider the concepts of broadband affordability, adoption, and availability for low-income households? We also seek comment on the extent to which the Commission should measure the cost-effectiveness of administering the ACP. Should the Commission track how the Affordable Connectivity Program is delivering value to low-income consumers? So basically here they're finishing up with, how do we track this? What should we track? And how do we determine if this is having a benefit? And then transition to the ACP from the EBB. We propose that households enrolled in the EBB as of December 31st, 2021, that would be the effective date, would not be required to submit a new application to enroll in the ACP. So if the consumer's already in the EBB, they shouldn't have to submit a new application. We also propose, which is interesting because there are a few changes there, including the COVID benefits. So we also propose requiring all households seeking to participate in the ACP, including EBB, that are eligible for ACP to opt in or affirmatively request enrollment in the ACP. So it's not this that they get switched over, but they've got to opt in. They don't need to submit a new application, but they do have to say, yeah, I want to switch over to the ACP. At least that's what they're proposing. So again, a lot of stuff in here is what the FCC is saying. We think this is how it should work, and we like your comments, and you've got, 20 days, 15 days, can't remember, in order to comment on that. Sunsetting of the ACP. So again, this will eventually end unless Congress extends it with some additional funds. They're saying at some point this money is going to run out. So we seek comment on what considerations the Commission should include regarding the end of the ACP when the funding is fully expended. And enforcement. The Act leaves unchanged the declaration that a violation, so you need to remember that anytime that you're taking money from the federal government, there's some serious consequences if you do something that's wrong, especially if you do something wrong knowingly. So there's a declaration that a violation of Section 904 or any regulation promulgated under that section shall be treated as a violation of the Communications Act of 1934. The Commission in the EBB program order stated that it would use its existing statutorily permitted enforcement powers to conduct investigations and impose administrative forfeitures, which would basically mean really large fines if you do something wrong. So you need to be careful about that. I think that's probably everything that I went through here. That would be it. So that's it. So there you go. 65 pages of stuff from the FCC. I hope that my taking you through some of those more what I thought were key points was helpful for you. If you were interested, if you're already doing EBB and looking at transitioning over to ACP or just going to start straight from ACP, I hope this was helpful. I will link to the this particular notice so that you can go through and read all 65 pages if you'd like, but at least you have an idea of what's in there. Not everything, obviously. I didn't cover everything, and I'm not claiming that I covered every important thing in here, but cover what I thought was interesting and important. So I'll link to that so you can go through that if you want. If this was helpful, please give me a like on this, a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe to my channel, or the Decorum channel, hit subscribe. Click the little bell and select all. And you're supposed to get all notifications. I haven't been getting them lately, so I'm checking on that. But hopefully you'll get notified when we're live. And again, I'm doing daily when I'm here. Well, obviously it won't be for holidays if I'm out, that kind of thing. And on Tuesdays, I'm doing Tech Tuesday. But daily, I'm doing these broadcasts on the infrastructure bill. So if that's of interest to you, I will be live every day, not generally at 3 o'clock. It's just whenever I get ready and prepared, and I will launch a live stream. So you can join me for those as well. Thanks for watching today for Tech Tuesday. Tech Tuesday will not be here next week because I'm taking a couple of days off, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. And then, of course, again, I'll be here every day that I am in the office with the broadband deployment news that I've been doing recently since this infrastructure bill passed. So whenever I see you, I will see you next time, and thanks for joining. Bye-bye.